Hello and welcome to Module 2. Thanks for coming back. Here we're going to take a look at student information that we have available to us, and we're going to look at the general walkthrough of student data. We'll also go into creating some searches by customized subgroups, and there's a tremendous amount of power here in the ability to do this. So I could say, try to find students on my campus who are ESE with an F in one of their subject areas, who have a level 1 on FSA and are absent more than 9 days. And I can create a custom list of that group, and I can export it to Excel. If I wanted to create radar groups for bubble kids, or if I wanted to isolate an ELL population who may have a certain number of absences, I can use the student information to parse total student enrollment down by whatever the criteria are that I set up for the creation of the subgroup. So we'll get right into it. We're going to go ahead and head over to Focus. And there are two places to find student information. Right here within your portal, you have the Find a Student box. So if I wanted to pull up information for a kiddo right quick, I don't have to go any further. They're right here in my portal. Or I can always access through Students and Student Info. And when I do that, it will take me up to the same screen that was there on my portal. I'm going to use this view here in Student Info. It's a little less busy than having all the portal information going on. So a couple things here. We can do a search. So I can search by a student's name. I can search by a partial name. If I knew the student's name, had a J-O-H in it, I could go ahead and just start typing J-O-H, hit enter, and it will pull up any student that has J-O-H. So I got my Johns, my Jonathans, my Johnsons for last names. So that's kind of helpful in case a kid runs by and you don't quite remember who they were, but what their name started with. You can use that search as such. Here's where we have student groups. So you can create student groups on campus. So if I wanted, varsity baseball list, I could create that, and my baseball coaches could search by that list to monitor student progress. Or if I had radar kids or MTSS groups, I could create student groups. That's coming ahead in one of the future modules, and it's named Creation of Student Groups. But here we have the search screen, and if I do nothing and I hit enter, it'll pull up a list of total student enrollment, and hit search as well, and it will pull up total student enrollment. It'll take a second for the list to generate, but we have here 1,862 students, and they're all in there by alphabetical. You'll see here in your view, and also the teachers have this view in their grade book, you'll see if a student is ELL. So it tells you what type of ELL services they receive. You'll see 504 accommodations, and this will just note the flag whether the student is 504. We see ESE here as well, so it will tell you the program code for those students. And like I said, teachers have that in the grade book. So it's a great visualization quickly to look over things and see who our special populations are that might require certain accommodations. So that's it. I just hit enter, and I got a list of all the kiddos here on campus. I can export this list if I want to, which I'll cover here in a little bit when we really customize a student group. And first, let me show you the information that we have available to us when we click on one of these students. Then I'm going to take you back to customizing this list a little bit. Maybe I want to add in cohort or counselor to this list here. I can customize how this search is displayed for me, which is kind of nifty. So in this case, I'm going to choose a student. Remember, students are scrambled. I'm in the sandbox, so data is all good. And here we have an individual. Once I selected an individual, they are displayed on top with a red X. I'm just going to have my screen blocked. They're displayed up here with a little red X. So if I want to get rid of that student, I'll get rid of them. But if I wanted to remove them from the display, I would have to click this little red X. So it's kind of like AS400 when you're in there and I have a student selected and I go from the student schedule to parent contact. I don't have to re-enter the student's name. It just kind of sticks. Well, it sticks in this system as well. And if I want to remove that student, I just hit the X and it brings me right back to my search screen. Again, I'm back here at the search screen. I can click names in there. I can hit search, and that's just going to generate total student enrollment. I'm going to go ahead and select a student. Once this opens up, I'm just going to pick a random student, a ninth grader in this case. We see we have student pictures that are displayed here as well. And we have the student number, and I'm going to show you all the information that's here when we click on to student info. So one, we have the notes log. So notes can be created by teachers who have a schedule record for the student with course and section, so they can add notes. School viewers and school editors can add notes as well as your guidance counselors if they're having contact with parents at home. This is super helpful because everyone who owns that student in AS400 has the ability to look at the student notes. Now, the student notes travel with that student, so if they have class changes, the notes are available for the other teachers that may be receiving this student. And also, the notes are there for this school year, but then they're wrapped up and then sealed, and only school editors and counselors have the ability to go back and look at previous year's notes. So to create a student note, this is something that you could do or your teachers will be doing. They can select the date, maybe a reason for contact was academics. The type of contact may have been a phone call. I could add the mom's number here that I contacted, and then I could spoke to applicable. I spoke to the mother. Referred by, maybe the AP asked me to go ahead and create this communication with the parent, so I would go through and do that. Put in the AP, and here's where I could add my comments. I could say, spoke to mom about whatever. This is an open field, and we can go ahead and add as much in there. And then documented by, I might go ahead and put my last name in there. And once I've created a student note, I hit enter. We see that student note has been created, and now I can save it. And now that lives here for that student. So you as an administrator or counselor can go into the student documentation notes and see what kind of communications parents have been having with teachers, or teachers have been having with students and parents, etc. So that's a really neat feature called student documentation. You can also, and I'll show you in advanced reports, a module later on, is that I can run student documentation reports where I can see all the types of documentation that have been created, and I can sort that out by type of contact as well. We see here along the side, I'm going to go through this side navigation. Student documentation is the first thing that populates, and it's also the last button field here. But I just want to go and show you some of the information that we have with respect to the student. If they had 504 information, this would be the flag of 504 yes or no. We can look at addresses and contacts. So here we have the address and contact information, the first, second, and third contact. I'm in the sandbox, so I just have parent A. If you want to know what any of these symbols are, you can hover over them. We see that the gavel is for custodial contact, and they have custody of the student. The exclamation point might be the emergency contact for that student, and the car is the ability to transport that student. And we will have all the contacts here from AS400, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, depending on how many the student has. You can also scroll down and you can see if there's any linked users. Okay, so this would be other students that are in the system that the parent has, or linked parents rather, and then any linked students, which would be any student relationships that this student has with other students within the district. Coming on down, if the student was ELL, we would have the ELL program code as well as the home language survey date. If they're ESE, we see that they have the basic services as well as the IEP reeval date, and then for elementary, the total times are there as well. We can look at enrollment And so we can see total student enrollment at the schools that this kiddo has been at. So in this case, I've chosen a hypothetical ninth grade student who obviously came from Stone in the 17-18 and the 18-19 school year, and then they came to Heritage High School here. So you would see total student enrollment within the district. So if the student has been to 4 or 5 schools this year, that would also appear in this list here. If you look at the general tab, so this has some other information about the student, ethnicity, location of birth, birth dates, like I said, ethnicity and gender data. You'll have here the AUP access. So do we have cloud access for this student? Can they access Google Classroom, etc.? These are all fields from AS400. And we have the permission to photo or video, etc. are there. And we can click down and see, if they had a home language survey, etc. So it's just some good general information there. I recommend that you visit this section. If I needed to print a parent PIN letter for the student, so their parents can activate the Focus portal, I would do that here under this General tab, and I can go ahead and choose the letter to generate for this student. Let me see, here's their parent PIN letter, and I can go ahead and print that letter right from here. We also look at the grade summary. So this is the grades of the students' course summary here. And we have broken down by quarter 1, quarter 2, exam and semester 1 grades. And then you'll notice here in quarter 3, because I'm actually actively in the quarter 3 marking period right now, you see this little GB. So that GB means the grade book grades. So this is the grades as they exist right now in the teacher's grade book. But since we have an active posting to final grades, this is just what sits in the teacher's grade book. This is not what the teacher has posted for the quarter 3 marking period grade. Under graduation, we'll have some graduation information here available. We can see if this student has successfully met, let's say, the Algebra 1 requirement for graduation. Have they not, and they maybe met a math concordance score, they could go ahead and that would be a green checkbox there. So some limited graduation information here for the student. Remember, AS400 is still always the best place to go when doing these types of functions. I come back down to student documentation. There was that note we added before about the student. If any teachers had created notes, that would be a much longer list. And we also have transportation. So we have the ID for the bus, the S stop, and I think we have a cross street of where that bus picks up and drops off. So that's really helpful at the beginning of the school year, especially in a middle school where the kids are scrambling to find their buses. I would have someone out there with a laptop in focus, and all of their S-stop information will be right there for them. Along the top, we have menu items as well. These are similar to the ones on the side, but there are a couple different ones up here that I'll discuss. So the enrollment we discussed, that was their enrollment schedule. You can look at their school schedule right now. So here's their 7 classes. If I wanted to show inactive classes, I could include inactive classes that the student has had. If there were any, they would be there and grayed out. So this is, if Johnny left their tuba in period 4 and I want to get it to period 5, I could go in here and do that. I'll tell you, there's a true story. I had a student forget their tuba next to the desk. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, we've got grades.
The Grades tab brings you to the grade summary page. You can actually toggle back and forth between the summary page and the grade detail page. If I were to click View Detailed Report, this brings me to the grade detail page, and then clicking View Grade Summary toggles me back to the grade summary page. The grade summary page gives you links for a variety of things. You can go to attendance. You can also click on the percentages for the grades for each grading period. Right now we don't see any, but there will be links that are the averages for the classes that will be clickable, and that will bring you to the grade books for those particular classes. You can also click Print Assignment Grades, That will then bring up all of the classes and all of the assignments for those classes. This page can either be printed by clicking the print button at the bottom of the page, or you can export this to an Excel file by clicking the export button next to the assignments for each course. So you would export each class's assignments separately. To return to the summary page, click View Grade Summary. Going to the detailed report, I'm going to click View Detailed Report. This page is course history, and this is similar to viewing the S520 panel on the AS400. There are also a variety of tabs that you can use to narrow down your view. You can use a filter to filter your view. You can print or export these pages as well. Next would be absences.
So we can get an idea of absences, both by period. We can see which turn into days worth of absences as well. So here we not only get the type of absence, or just that whether they're absent or not, but we actually get the absence code that goes along with that, whether that be doctor excused, field trips for testing, etc. And now what's nice is if I had, say, the student on an attendance contract, I can go ahead and change the date ranges if I was only interested in things that happen from December to today. I could do that and click go, and then it would reorder the data and give me the current absence history for that date range that I had established. The next thing is test history. So I'm going to click on test history, and we see here we have the total test history for that student. These are all the state assessments. And if I click on one of them, and teachers have access to this information as well, which is super, super neat. It's something that we had to go hunt for before, but now it's kind of all here in the grade book. So if I'm interested in the student's FSA ELA scores, I could open this little window here, and we see it gives me the achievement level, but it also indicates the strand data, so the knowledge of integration and ideas and language and editing tasks here because I'm in an FSA ELA test. If I wanted to close that out, I could hit this little triangle here, and let's say I wanted to go look at Algebra 1, I could open that up, and here I go, Algebra and Modeling, Functions and Modeling, Statistics and Numbering System. So if I'm working with a student who's not yet met the achievement level necessary, I could hone in on what that lowest strand is and try to provide some scaffolded support for those students. Okay. And that is the last section here that we'll cover within the student information and the information that's there at your fingertips. Now we're going to take a look at creating those custom student groups. So to return back to the search, I want to X this student out. It might be just out of view on your screen, but there should be a red X up here in the corner. If I click on that, I've now taken that student out of the search, and here I have the search screen. So I said we had the ability to customize our list too. So I just wanted to walk you through that. So if I wanted to customize my list, and instead of just having student number, student name, I can go ahead and add fields to that customized list. So I can customize student list. And here is where I can actually add the field. So maybe I'm interested in, oh gosh, let's add in their, their local student ID, which is in there. I could add in their homeroom. I could go ahead and add on their counselor, which is super helpful. And I can also put in their cohort, etc. in here. So these are all the fields that come from AS400 that I can use to customize my list. So if I go back to a customized list and I search, now it's going to add those fields in that I just generated. It's going to take a second here because it's pulling data for 1,800 students. We have the student name, the student ID, and the grade, but I want to customize student list. I forgot to save it the last time it was there. That's why it didn't appear. So there's a good learning mistake here. that when we add information, like if we want a student email address and counselor, you need to save the customized list. If you don't save it, it's not going to be there for you. So it was a good habit to do so. Now I'm running that customized list that I just created. It's running it for those 1,800 students. So it'll take a second here. If we see perfection, we have student name, student ID, their grade, and their counselor. Now what's nice is when you generate any of these lists, you can export these lists to Excel by clicking this little button, which will give you the list in an Excel format, or you can print it if you like as well. All right, so that's the customized list. I can also go to the search screen and do just a general one, or I can use that customized list, which stays there. If I wanted to add or change fields to that, I could go over here and add the fields in by customizing the student list, and then those new fields would have pop in when I hit the customized list. I'm going to go back to the search screen, the simple search screen, and here's where I want to target a particular group, and I want to create a list of these kiddos that I'm looking for. So what we can do there is we can do more search options. So in this case, I'm interested in generating a list of students who are ESE, who are ELL, who have a C, D, or F in one of their academic courses. So to do that, I can go over here to this more search options and open it up. And here's where anything I click here now will parse total student enrollment by the variables that I've selected. So if I was interested in 9th and 10th grade students only, if you click, and you just have to get here and look at some of these fields because they're amazing. I could say, hey, students scheduled into particular courses, or I could do students not scheduled into particular courses. This could be super helpful. Or teachers scheduled into a teacher with that. So I could create teacher lists here as well. Really neat stuff. If I open one of these up and I want it to close, I got to hit this little gray triangle right here. So in this case, right now, if I hit search, I would just generate a list of 9th and 10th grade students. But let's say I wanted to find 9th and 10th grade students who are ESE. And here's where I could add their program code. So I'm interested in finding my 113s in this search. So if I were to hit enter, I would generate a list of 9th and 10th grade students who have a 113 program code. Let's say I'm also interested to see if anyone is ESE and ELL. So I can here now select the type of program code, whether they be tested, non-eligible, etc., or LEP in this case, and I can hit search. And I've generated a list of 2 students who are ESE and ELL that are in 9th or 10th grade. So a really interesting, neat way to search. You can always look at your search criteria are up here. All right, so let's say now I'm interested in finding any 12th grade students who have absences, any type of period absence, all periods, with an A, parent note. We can go for suspensions as well. And those numbers of periods missed, let's say between 9 and 20. So right now I'm pulling up a list of 12th grade students with more than 9 to 20 days of absences. And I want to know also if any of those students for semester 1, I could pick it over here. I can't because my drop down is in week 9 weeks. So I'm going to look for students currently with a gradebook grade, quarter 3 gradebook grade. If I wanted to access semester or quarter 1 or quarter 2, I would have to change that 9-week drop down in the upper right hand corner. But right now I'm just going to look at the quarter 3 gradebook grades that have a D or an F. I'm just going to add in C so we make sure we grab some kids. So right now, if I were to leave this alone, I'm getting a list of 12th grade students absent between 9 and 20 days with a C, D, or F in one of their academic courses. Now, ultimately, I would hit this search and it would come up with no students, which would be phenomenal. But here we see it comes up a list of 45 students who meet that criteria. So this is a target group that I'm interested in chatting with, and see we've created the student list. I can export this student list right now and give that to the counselors to start calling these kids down. I can print this list, or if I just wanted to look and say, okay, what's going on with this student here, I can say I want to see what the grades are. I can go to gradebook. Here are their current gradebook averages, and we see there is the 37%. I can look at their absences, and now I can see, oh boy, yes, here we go. We have those absences. So if we have 27 periods absent. So that is how I do that. I can X that student out by clicking out here to bring me back to my search list. So I encourage you to go in here to these more search options, and it gives you the ability to target those kids and identify them, and then create a really user-friendly Excel spreadsheet with that information on there. So that's student information and the ability to customize a list, the ability to parse total student enrollment down by certain variables, or just to find general information about a student.